Hello, and welcome to episode 6 of the Brohammer podcast. Today I have Jeff Biery with me. He is a special guest today because he won the GCWA Grand Tournament in Mississippi last weekend. Jeff currently holds first place with Drukari in the ITC. He's been playing off and on for about 20 years, primarily Dark Eldar and Chaos. He stuck with them through the dark days for Dark Eldar, and now he's been rewarded with great codex, and obviously you've done pretty well with it, Jeff. So tell us just a little bit about that tournament, what you did preparing for it, what went into your list design, and anything else, really.
Sure, yeah, and thanks for having me on. Well, I'll start off, and I'll briefly describe what I have on my list so that people kind of understand what it is that I'm using here.
Okay.
I have Urian Karth as my Warlord, a regular Homunculus, and then 3 units of ARAX, 3 units of 7 Grotesque, 2 Crimson Hunter Exarchs with Star Cannons, 2 Hemlock Wraith Fighters, and then I actually took the Auxiliary Support Attachment for the -1 CP to get a single Farseer Skyliner on my list. Comments on my list, I know a lot of people are always shocked that I'm not running the Agents of Vect stratagem in my list, and I do love it. It is great. I do plan on using that for ATC as well. But some tough matchups I have, it's going against things like Shadow Swords and Magnus, and here in the near future, I'm expecting lots of Knights. So getting that Doom was really important for me when I was designing the list here.
Mm-hmm.
So that was basically the trade-off I made on that. It's what a lot of people ask when they see my list, and then it's not in there. As far as list design, like things I was strategizing for it,
Mm-hmm.
I also didn't want to bring in a small Cabal detachment because I was trying to keep there from being any easy turn 1 kills on my list. So I didn't want to have like a small 5-man Cabalite warrior squad out there that makes it easy for people to pick up the old school point and kills turn 1.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yeah, and I think I remember hearing one of your games throughout the GT, they actually didn't kill their first unit till turn 3. So actually my list design was similar too, in making it hard for them to kill units, and if you can control more objectives, then you're going to get an early lead, and it takes them some time to get back. But yeah, the list design was great, obviously, because you won with it. What were your expectations going into the event? What were your goals? Did you expect to win the whole thing? And if not, kind of what were you going to be happy with coming away from the event?
Well, even walking up to the doors the first day, I was saying to myself, like, I am going to be really happy if I just go 4-1. I haven't actually played in many GTs. I've played lots of RTTs, and I've been very successful there. Mm-hmm. But it's always still intimidating to go up to that bigger playing field where you've got 2, maybe 3 times as many players. I would have been content with 3-2. I was really hoping for 4-1, and then, kind of like in the back of my mind, hoping, hey, maybe I can go 5-0. So pulling that off was also definitely like a surprise to me as well. I hoped for it, but you never want to plan for it.
Yep, absolutely, and that was my mentality going in too. Is if I do worse than 3-2, I'll be disappointed. But anything better than 3-2 is it's awesome, because going into a GT, the matchups are going to affect how you do. Do the dice rolls go your way a little bit, and obviously you got to pilot it well, and you definitely did that. So what I'm curious of next is, what was the toughest fight for you? What was the most fun fight for you? Do you feel like the dice went your way at all, or was it just a grind to get to the top?
Honestly, even just starting with my very first game, I was nervous going in because, lucky me, I drew Leo Correa, who is a frequent player with us, and in fact, I've played him in the final round top tables at the previous 2 events. Mm-hmm. So having him for my round 1 opponent was really not the way I wanted to start off the tournament, knowing that it was going to be a really tough game. And then my second matchup was against Carter Leach, who I know was a top 8 in the LVO, not this past year, but the year before. So I'm looking at my matchups, and I was definitely intimidated every game going into them. My third opponent was Gene Stealer Cult, which Gene Stealer Cult and Tyranid, for whatever reason, it is the army I understand the least, because I do not own a single model of anything in either of those lines. Mm-hmm. That also ended up being my 5th round game as well, Gene Stealer Cult and Tyranid. But if you're asking for what I thought my toughest match was, You would know, because I was expressing this to you guys in the chat, my Brohammer teammates, that it was my round 4 matchup when I saw who I would be playing against, a Thousand Suns list with Magnus, several Demon Princes, and Armin, of course, lots of Plague Bearers. I just knew that that list had the tools to counter me on everything I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I was definitely scared of the Plague Bearers getting ramped up and doing 4 or even 6 damage so that they could wreck my durable grotesque units. And all the psychic powers being slung around, I knew that they would be able to snipe out my characters, which would then diminish my buffs and all my Rs that I was trying to share to keep things going better. And even Magnus. I know a lot of people were kind of naysayers on Magnus for a while because he's so easy to kill turn 1. But I had very little shooting ability in my army. So math-wise, I would have only expected to do like 9 wounds to him turn 1. And then he would immediately just start cleaving through my jets left and right. So that was definitely the game I was most nervous about as far as seeing what was on the list and walking up to the table.
That that strength of schedule is crazy. Going back a little bit, starting with Leo, who I believe he's actually 4-0 at a grand tournament today while we're recording this, looking for the win on that one. So starting with him, then going on to Carter Leach, who kicked my butt round 1. It sounds like the only real break you got was maybe Genestealer Cult, and that wasn't a break because just mentally you've got to kind of wing it, because like you said, that wasn't an army you know very much about. Genestealer Cult hasn't been played hardly at all since codexes started coming out, so the easy matchup, and I put that in quotation marks, really wasn't. And then, like, again, going into the Chaos matchup, the fact that you won that, I came over and watched that a little bit, and I saw that you were in the lead. I don't want to say I was surprised, but I was very impressed, because as a Chaos player, I knew exactly what his list could do and what it could do to you specifically. So for you to fight through it, get the lead, and I want to say, I don't remember the score on that, I don't know if you do, but I want to say it wasn't even really as close as it could have been. So just more kudos to you for piloting it well, getting through that tough matchup, and then making it to top table against arguably one of the best players out of Florida, and John Lennon, who I think he's won 2 GTs this year already. He's 4-0 at another GT today with his Tyranids Genestealer Cult list, moving on to top table. So you definitely, it wasn't a coast to get there. You had to fight to get to that top table. So that was just awesome and really impressive. And using that to go into top table, tell me what you were feeling going into that game. You were already 4-0, so I guess your initial goal had been met. You had one more to go, and that was to win the whole thing. So tell us how you were feeling, what your thoughts were going into it, if you were concerned about your opponent, the game.
Yeah, sure. And one quick note, too, just because I don't want to diminish my round 3 or my round 4 opponent either. They are both phenomenal players as well. And when I talked to the event organizers, they both commented that Will Grant and Mark Perry are both like the top players in their regions, and how they have finished very high in rankings and win a lot of RTTs as well. So yeah, it was a very difficult climb getting up there. You're absolutely right. So I finished the round with Mark Perry. I was relieved. I was surprised myself. I was ecstatic with that. I had hit my conservative goal. I was happy that I was 4-0 at that point. I already knew that John Lennon was going to be my opponent, because he had come over and I had seen that he had won his other round against the only other player that was 4-0 at the time. And that still had me very apprehensive, because I've played John Lennon many times. He is a phenomenal player. He won Best Tyranid last year. He won the Crucible 6.5, this most recent one. So he's been winning huge events, and like you said, he's 4-0 right now last year. So yeah, I was very nervous about that, and especially knowing that he was still playing Genestealer Cult. I have played him 4 times total now, but at the time I played him 3 times. He had beaten me 2 times, and I had beaten him once. And one of the times that he beat me, and it was the near tabling, like turn 1, it was when he was using Genestealer Cult in 7th edition.
Mm-hmm.
So that was it was definitely one of those flashback kind of moments, like, oh, great, I'm playing John Lennon again with his Genestealer Cult, only the rules are different, it's a new edition, so I kind of know what they can do. I'm really lucky that they don't have a full codex with full psychic powers and stratagems and everything out, or I know it's going to be an even tougher, way tougher match. So yeah, I was definitely nervous going in just because of how good of a player he is, and he does have a very strong, consistent record. He's a great opponent. Most of the pre-round startup stuff, like before we really got into rolling dice, I did not love the deployment. I did not love. He won the roll off for who got to pick going first or second. I didn't mention this, but in my list, I actually really love going second because I am so durable. I can usually survive them going first. I usually don't even lose a unit turn one, and it really lets me control the pace of the game with controlling more objectives and killing more units. I like to be very deliberate and precise in saying, all right, he killed one unit, so I just need to kill these two, and I'll make it a point to go after some weaker, easier things to knock out, even if they're not the biggest threats to me in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So he very wisely passed turn one to me. So like I said, combining having to go first with not liking the deployment zone and not knowing Team Stealer Cult that well, I knew it was going to be a tough match. And he actually had a good lead on me through the first couple turns of the game. But he was running out of steam. That was the biggest thing. I definitely win the war of attrition in this matchup. I have the ability to do mortal wounds, get through his Gene Stealer blobs. One of the biggest plays for me was really getting to knock out his Hive Guard in turn two before they got to really just demolish all of my tougher, more durable units. That was probably the biggest threat to my list. So I wanted to make sure I got something into them as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit about how you did that, because that was kind of a big deal. I know the terrain was great at this event. I do want to give Anthony Henkel and that group a lot of credit. I really like the terrain, but there were a lot of ruins on that table, and I know that in ITC the first floor ruins being line of sight blocking. You already don't have much shooting, and he's got ruins to hide in. So tell us just like how you got to those Hive Guard, how you messed them up, and how big was that for the game?
Sure. So yeah, like you said, the terrain on the tables was great. I really liked it on all the tables I saw. It was definitely not a hasty, thrown together job. It all looked great and it was very functional. So John had, of course, put his Hive Guard inside of a building on the ground floor where they would be safe because the ITC ruling is that doors and windows block line of sight. It wasn't even a huge building, honestly. It was pretty small, but it was big enough to fit the 6 Hive Guard in there, and I think a Biobore as well. But what he did not think about was that there were some holes on the top of the building. And usually that would not be a big deal to most players because you can't deep strike on top of that. You would be too close to the units inside of the building. But since I was running 4 jets, it did give me the ability to fly over and then set up line of sight looking down through those holes in the roof or floor, depending on which floor of the building you're talking about. It did let me get the line of sight in there to line up 2 jets shooting down into the skylight, basically.
Mm-hmm.
The rolling didn't go as well as I would have liked on it, but it did enough damage to knock out 4 of the Hive Guard. So leaving him with just 2 left inside the building, which he didn't even think about it. I guess it had never crossed his mind that I could shoot through that. It really dampened his output significantly for the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that was definitely a huge moment. And I think if I hadn't gotten that, it was a pretty close score going into the end of turn 5. We didn't play the 6th turn, but just playing through turn 5, I only had like a 3-point lead. So if he had Hive Guard shooting at me every turn as well, I don't know if I would have won at all, even, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, again, that was a really exciting thing. I was finishing up my game, but I think Will was watching y'all, and that was such a big deal. He had to come and tell me, like, interrupt my game, because it didn't matter, and just like, bro, you'll never guess what Jeff just did. So that was huge, and I'm sure that was a really satisfying moment. And was that when you kind of knew you were going to win the whole thing? Did you know before that? At what point, if at all, did you just really sit back and think, I'm about to win a GT?
Well, interestingly, there were 2 big shakeups in turn 2, both of them happening during my turn. The other one was something that he caught me off guard with. I put a lot of resources into my positioning and psychic powers and shooting into trying to snipe out one of his characters because I was setting up like leadership debuffs, and then I was going to try and hit him with Mind War and fire into one of his characters. I, not knowing Gene Stealer cults very well, did not realize that they still have the Lookout Sir rule functionally. So all of my resources that I poured into that were completely wasted. And that hurt me significantly because I didn't quite kill that Hive Guard unit. So everything else basically went into trying to snipe out that character. So that failed. And then I missed my rerollable charge into a Carnifex with a big unit of Microtest. So I actually ended up not killing a unit in my turn 2, which set me back significantly on the score. Before we were within like a point of each other, I think. Mm-hmm. He actually went up by like 3 or 4 points because then he killed more. So he was getting like some of those bonus points on it. And he was in a position where I would hold 3 objectives, but since he got to go second, he was knocking me off 1 or 2, making sure that he held more than me every turn. So he did a very good job with that. So turn 2 was definitely not a moment where I said, all right, I got this game. That was actually still a moment of, okay, I'm glad I did some good damage to my number 1 enemy here on the table. That was my goal, but I'm actually in a bad position. So I did get a good solid position on the middle of the field, and I was able to kind of wipe out one side of the table for him, which really cut him off from a lot of points for recon going through turn by turn, because he was pretty much out of deep strike opportunities at this point. Mm-hmm. So like I said, I knew it was a game of attrition from there, so I just want to go through as many turns as I can. I always like to finish turns in a game when possible, so I knew I would be catching up with each passing round. I think it was probably turn 4 where I didn't look at the score precisely. I didn't add them up, but I was guessing I was up by 1 or 2 points, and then it's just always still stressful to me going second because I know he's going to have the better option to dictate, all right, I'm going to get these bonuses and control the last points of the game.
Yeah, and when your opponent's going second too, that is one of the worst feelings. Round 6, you know it's the last turn. You both tally points, and you're ahead by 4 points. And so basically you're talking through, okay, if he gets kill 1, hold 1, and the bonus, well, he's only got to find 2 points from somewhere else, check secondaries. You start doing all that math of there's nothing I can do. If he manages to pull this off, he's going to take the win from me. And that's one of the hardest things about going first. So I can imagine top table at the GT. You said you only had a couple point lead going, I guess, into round 5 because y'all didn't get to round 6. I can imagine just how stressful that was. But obviously it worked out well for you. And hopefully John Lennon gets the one today in Texas because he's a great player and he deserves it. But, I mean, you stuck with Dark Eldar, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, through when they were pretty bad. So to be able to see them do well and take them to the top on a big stage like that, on live stream, which was cool too, by the way, that's really exciting. So what was your, I guess, the most memorable thing from the event? It can be winning the whole thing if there's anything else aside from that. It doesn't even have to be Warhammer related, just how the weekend went for you. What was the most memorable? What was the most fun? And what do you feel that the event did great as well?
Well, for the event overall, I think it's one of the best run events I've ever been to, honestly, because they did such a great job with having all the tables and the terrain set up. They did a phenomenal job with keeping to the schedule as far as like, hey, here's our time to the next round, time to the next round. I love the prize support. They had the options out there for you to pick what you wanted, like out of get started boxes for other kits. So I didn't feel like I was getting things that I couldn't use. So yeah, and even the trophies. So I have a lot of appreciation to the guys that hosted the event. They did a great job with it. A moment that probably, I don't know, I guess lifted my heart the most was in that 4th round game because I was so apprehensive about it. It was when I was able to drag down Magnus in the 2nd turn, because that was when I felt like I had a chance to win that game. Mm-hmm. And I had just been so sure I was going to lose it going in, that was like the kind of like, oh, hold on a second. Like there's a chance here. There's an opening that you're making. Mm-hmm. So that was probably my favorite event from the game because I didn't think I had the answers to get him really. Yeah, I know. That's always a great feeling when you do the
what feels like impossible, which killing a Primarch, taking out super heavy Shining Spears, anything that is really tough to deal with. When you finally drop it, you can kind of sit back, take a deep breath, and realize I've got a chance now. So let's see. I think that was pretty much all the questions I had for you. I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to touch on, revisit, any shout outs. I believe you've named every opponent by name, which is great. I wish I could remember, but I couldn't remember all my opponents. So that's really exciting. And hopefully they're all listening so they can hear that too. But yeah, so just any last thoughts, anything you wanted to cover?
Sure. I can add a couple other things about my list because I do really love having an army that I can rely on recon and behind enemy lines in 90% of my games, because then I don't have to read through the opponent's list and see what points they're offering me for Reaper, or I don't know. I really hate taking Headhunter and Death by 1,000 Cuts. I feel like those are traps a lot of times, so I hate looking for those other scoring opportunities. That's one of the reasons I love having a durable list, and it's why I love my Jets so much, for getting me into the different quadrants of the table as needed. I will say that going forward, Dark Eldar are amazing right now. Honestly, I am spoiled. I kind of wish they weren't this good, because I see a lot of people being successful with them, and that's not really my favorite thing. I definitely like playing more of an underdog faction. So I am anticipating them getting toned down in the future. But also, I'm looking at upcoming matchups now with the release of Knights Codex and with Deathwatch, and I really think I'm going to have some very tough games against not even like a full Deathwatch army necessarily, but even just having a decent sized attachment of that or the Knights in there. They will definitely give me a lot of trouble because I won't be able to win the kill and kill more trade-offs, and I will have a very tough time getting through those high wound, high toughness models.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Is like a Gallant, his fist will deal 6 damage per swing that goes through. So if he hits a unit of 7 Grotesques, and I mean he's fairly efficient, gets 4 through, every failed and vulnerable save is pretty much a dead Grotesque. Losing durable bodies that quickly sucks. Like that, when that happened to my flies, and I'd lose like a whole unit of flies on turn 1. I mean, you feel it a lot. They're not always a ton of points. I know Grotesques aren't crazy expensive, but you built the list in such a way that when that unit is missing early on, you really feel it. And Knights do have the potential to do that to durable multi-wound units like Grotesques.
Absolutely. And the new Dominus class, I'm nervous about the Shieldbreaker missiles, because I'm very dependent on my character buffs, the auras, and my invul save. And sure enough, those missiles negate both things. They can snipe my characters, and I do not get my invul save on it. So I'm probably going to have to go back to having Vect on my list just try and stop that element of the game. But then that means now I don't have Doom, which was one of the few ways I could try to drag down the Knights. So yeah, it's definitely something that'll take a lot of testing and seeing how the meta changes in the coming weeks.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And it almost becomes one of those where you kind of hope that the Knights run into a bottleneck. Maybe they have a bad matchup or a bad mission, and maybe they'll get bottlenecked so that you don't even have to deal with them. I mean, obviously that's the goal. That's my dream. If I can go to an event and not have to worry about Eldar or Dark Eldar, I'm sitting great. But unfortunately, if I get the wrong mission against Eldar, then it's done. And I feel that Eldar is going to have that trouble with Knights moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of any GT or major win as well. Sometimes it's not necessarily the luck of the dice that wins it so much as it is the luck of the matchup. Like which opponents or armies are you going against? So that was definitely pretty well to my favor, other than the one game, which I think I kind of just lucked out with, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if you do get that bad matchup and the dice go in your favor just a little bit, you can still win. And I do think that the game is balanced to a point where that can happen. So that's what happened for you round 4, I reckon.
Yep.
So I know, I believe at least, the next big event you're going to is the ATC, right? There's nothing planned between now and then?
No big events. Yeah, everything else will just be like small practice training type games. Yeah, I don't have any other tournaments or anything going on.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time for this one, but in the future, I'd like to get you back on to talk about ATC prep, how it's going to change list design. Obviously, you've had a successful list and done well as a take all comers, so that might be a potential role for you in the future. But that's just something to, if you want, if you're interested, we can go over, and hopefully we get some feedback in the comments. Maybe people are interested in that, seeing what it takes to prepare for ATC. Fortunately, you and I are on the same team, so we have a lot already that we've been working on and synergizing. So getting the thoughts out, letting other people hear what goes into prepping for the American Team Championship, I think that could probably be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Be happy to come back on.
Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate it, Jeff. Once again, congratulations. That's exciting. That's something one day I'd like to do, but I'm not there yet. So, but all right. Well, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Have a good one.
All right. See you.